Welcome to Mentoring Moments. Mentoring Moments is a sub-series of the eCommerce Edge podcast. It is composed of clips taken from Jason's one-to-one and group mentorship sessions. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the pod. It is my extreme pleasure to welcome Ryan Robinson from RightBlogger to the pod. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm pumped to be here.
Full transparency, I'm a big fan of RightBlogger. I use it. I've been a subscriber for a couple of years now. I have been using the platform to help convert my long-form YouTube videos into full-length blog articles. I've talked about it on this podcast before. I tested doing conversion of videos from long-form video into blog articles, and doing it 100% manually took me about 1 hour per episode. And using RightBlogger, it takes me 7 minutes per episode. I guess less than 1/10 of the time, or around 1/10 of the time, is a pretty good time reduction using your software. So I wanted to get you on. We really focus on e-commerce here on the eCommerce Edge, but I think that you can no longer have content be separate from commerce. They are one and the same, and those content and commerce journeys have gotten to a point where they're so interwoven together that if you're not doing content at scale along with your commerce, you're probably not going to be successful.
Yeah, at the very least, you're leaving a lot of value on the table. And if you want to really holistically view this as an e-commerce business, like, you're building relationships with people. You want to have real connection. And when you're not producing content and you're not using video to do it, you're really leaving a lot of opportunity to build that relationship and just create more connection with people. You're leaving it on the table. You talked about a use case that is actually my favorite about RightBlogger too. And I think it's one of the best ways you can use AI today: repurposing content, taking stuff that you do the hard version first, which, for most people, video is harder than writing a blog post, and then use AI to take that video and really seamlessly, easily transition it into other formats that you can use for repurposing on blogs, socials, all that kind of stuff.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head, which is that this idea of pillar content, right? This idea of creating an opportunity. Like, we drop 3 full long form podcasts per week, but that's not where it ends. That's actually where it starts. That is the genesis of so much more content than that. That is the genesis of blog posts. It is the genesis of short form video clips for YouTube Shorts, for Instagram, for TikTok. It is the genesis of posts on LinkedIn, on X, on Reddit. It is really the foundational element of many more versions of that same content that then is contextualized for the platform that we're sending that content to. We're trying to make it relevant in that space, because taking a long form piece of content and just embedding it into a short form platform, you're getting a substandard experience. So being able to repurpose it in a contextualized way feels like the way of the future, but you have to be creating an environment or an opportunity for the regular production of long form content. And if you're not doing that, then every single piece of short form content becomes a production in and of itself. And that's really hard to be sustainable. In my experience, most people that I talk to, and I know for myself, when I was doing separate, completely standalone short form content, very difficult to stay consistent with.
Yeah. And I think this one, it really comes back to knowing yourself and what your strengths are. And so for me, I can sit down and write a blog post for 8 hours, and I can love that, but that's not most people. But for me, turning on the camera, I want to do a video that's pretty well thought out. I've storyboarded, I've loosely scripted, at least I have bullet points. I know the examples, the stories I want to tell. I like putting that work in. And in order to get real ROI from that, doing that for longer term, larger scale content, that's videos maybe 15 to 45 minutes in length, that's my sweet spot. Because if I spend 4 hours in pre-production for a video that's just going to be a YouTube short, an Instagram reel, talking a minute less of content, oh man, I can't do the kind of volume. I don't have that energy. It doesn't energize me to produce 3 of those a week. But can I get on and chat with someone about a topic that I love or do a live stream for an hour a couple times a week? That's my sweet spot. So I think if you do love making short form content and that's like where your strength lies, then lean into it because I see it working. But I get so much more juice out of doing long form content and doing clip downs of videos, like taking a section from something that is longer, chopping it down to a 1-minute clip, or doing a mashup, a trailer style video to promote those kinds of long form content. That's where I see most of the ROI too.
And I think that for me, when I'm looking at most of the content creators that I'm engaged with and that I enjoy their content, they're not full-time content creators. And even speaking for myself, I run a consulting firm, and that's my primary source of income. So I need to devote 80+% of my time to actually doing the work, delivering client work, going out and winning new clients, going out and having conversations, speaking at conferences. I need to be out there generating pipeline for me and my series of partners that I work with. And so doing content full time isn't an option for me yet. Now, maybe one day it will. Hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe 80-90% of my income can come from my content. But until that day, myself and the vast majority of content creators out there, I think they're part-time content creators. Now, admittedly, I probably spend more time on content per week than most of the people I know. I'm spending between 6 and 8 hours a week on content, and that's a pretty significant investment of time. It's 1 day a week of my working week dedicated to content, dropping 3 full-blown edited podcasts a week. That's a pretty big commitment. But then again, I'm not out there spending, a bomb on Meta and Google advertising and paid and performance marketing all over the internet. I'm not out there spending a bomb on that in cold hard cash. I'm making the investment in myself, and I'm making the investment in my audience so that I don't have to do that, because my goal is always to be a magnet versus a lasso. And so for me, I'm trying to create that really engaging, really interesting, really educational content that then acts as a magnet to me and my personal brand, which then anybody that knows about me knows what I do. And when it's time for them to need some type of services like mine, then hopefully the idea is for me to always be top of mind for them.
Yeah, I like this. And, you touched on something here that I think also talks to, like, we can go into the defensibility of long form content in the age of AI and SEO. So I see so many people totally losing their shit over AI overviews, what Google used to call search generative experience. So it's the little snippets that are going to be popping up, AI overviews when you do a Google search. And like, my biggest takeaway on this is that anything that's a simple question and answer is gonna go away. Like your traffic to glossary pages, things like that, that's just like super quick question and answer style content where you can type in the answer and Google can AI answer it real quick. That kind of traffic is gonna go away. And that's actually a good thing. They've been trying to do that since featured snippets for 5, 6, 7 years now. And so this is essentially just another iteration of that. And in my opinion, where all creators, business owners have real opportunity here is to take the relationships deeper with people. So even if the question that someone is searching when they come to your product is something that can be answered with an AI overview, you still have the opportunity to be that source snippet in there. And if you just do a Google search, you'll see the way that they cite sources. It's going to be totally fine for still driving traffic to people's blogs, websites. And the real opportunity is just in creating much deeper, longer form tutorials, examples, like giving full product breakdowns, teaching people in your audience how to use the products that you sell in order to affect the kind of change they want in their lives. That's the kind of stuff where now you have this explosion of an opportunity that AI is never going to be able to teach this kind of stuff in the way that humans can. And frankly, I would never want to learn it from AI anyway. I don't know if you've watched any of the like totally AI generated videos, like they are such a snooze fest, or I just bounce immediately because I'm like, this is not what I'm here for. I want to learn from a human who has real lived experiences and can tell me about the examples they see working, the ways that people use these products within their customer base in order to create the kind of change they want in their lives. That's the like really juicy stuff now.
I think also, and I'd love your take on this as you think about the future of both content commerce, but also the RightBlogger platform. I see stream of consciousness as being uniquely a human thing, right? This stream of consciousness conversation where I ingest in real time what you're saying, my brain, without even consciously thinking about it, is already thinking about the next things that I want to respond to. It triggers a new series of creative thought in my mind, just absorbing what you're saying. I'm saying more things back to you, and we're having this stream of consciousness thought. Now, ChatGPT 4.0 is very impressive, and it's definitely the most impressive form of ChatGPT so far, bar none. Multimodal, doesn't have to do translation before it can create a response. It does it in real time. This is very impressive. Do not get me wrong. I think AI is impressive. I think it's getting better. We still have massive issues with hallucination, however, and we also have a situation where the core content from across the internet that is used in Gen AI in particular is of varying quality, right? You have so much trash content on the internet that is inaccurate. It doesn't make sense. It's been written for the search engines. And so we have a situation where, unfortunately, the variability in human generated content is massive. So therefore, the variability in AI generated content based on that human generated content is necessarily going to be of massive variable quality. And I think this is and then you have the agendas of the various companies that are creating these technologies. You have the woke leftist nature of companies like Google. And we've seen that. We've seen some of the output of their Gen AI being absolutely ridiculous. And clearly the DEI department had control of the levers when they were producing their Gen AI content. And the challenge here is that for many topics and many subjects, there is objective truth. If we're talking about physics, for example, there is objective truth. If we're talking about a historical event, there is objective truth. And so the reality is that, unfortunately, Gen AI, depending on the guardrails that are put in place for it, if there's an agenda behind that, sometimes objective truth gets lost in the mix. And that's probably my biggest concern.
Yeah, really, it's a question of how many hats can you stack on top of hats before it all topples over. And I see this as super interesting. Google just rolled out, I think last week or so, this AI overviews across most accounts. And so you can do some of this searching on your own, ask it weird questions. And like one of the examples I was just checking out yesterday, because I'm making a video of insane AI overviews, is that I asked Google, just normal Google search, I asked it, how many rocks should I eat a day? And unfortunately, the answer was that you should eat a few small pebbles a day in order to maintain good health. And I don't know about you, but I don't think that's a great answer to make its way into a Google search result. So none of these tools are perfect, and they likely never will be, because as you said, like, we're dealing with human inputs here, and human inputs will always have imperfection to them. But where you have a strength is also in being human. That's what you bring to the table as a content creator, your own lived body of experiences, the stories that you've gone through, the examples that you can actually bring to the table when you're talking about something. That's where the real value is.
One of the things I think that makes a lot of sense here is, even with RightBlogger, and RightBlogger is an amazing tool, it's an amazing platform, but I still have to, I'll copy and paste the generated blog article, I'll copy and paste it out into a Google Doc. I'll make sure the names are spelled right of the people that are speaking. I'll make sure that the company names are named correctly. I'll make sure that I'll go through and I'll do a review, make sure that the key points that were pulled out were actually accurate, make sure, and I'll do a review, and it might take me 1 to 2 minutes per blog article to make sure everything is exactly as I mean it to be. But again, we come back to a place where me, as an AI augmented human in this case, I'm 10 times as fast, right? I'm 10 times as efficient. So the heavy lift of the first cut can be done by AI. Then I'll make sure it's all correct, it's all accurate, it's exactly. And the great thing I love about RightBlogger and other platforms like RightBlogger is that it will sample my tone. So it will sample my content. It will then say, okay, this now we understand what your unique tone is, and we will speak like you would, or close to how you would. We will use a tone of voice. We will use the type of banter that you use, right? I'm a bit edgy in the way that I talk about things, and it will replicate that very well. So it sounds, and it's taking directly from my content anyway to generate the blog article. And so it's using my words, it's using my tone, and it's writing in a way, it's writing effectively almost like cliff notes of the full length content in my voice. And it's doing that in a very short period of time. It takes 2 minutes per video to do that, per hour-long video to do that. Now, that's something that as a human would take me an hour. So I love the fact that we're now talking about not necessarily AI replacing a human being, but we're talking about augmenting our own capabilities and augmenting our own content to make it reusable and repurposable really quickly and really efficiently.
You hit the nail on the head. You totally get it. This is why we built the platform too, is that these tools will not replace us. They just can't. We will be able to get to spaces where we're able, as the creators, the people with the real lived experiences, to teach higher and higher levels of things and have AI do the first drafts for us. That really is the sweet spot. And the things that will improve dramatically with AI in the future is in getting that voice right. So right now, like inside RightBlogger, we teach it, we train the model essentially based on an account level. We'll train the model to learn from your voice, your tone, your style. If you upload blog posts, your website URL, paste in text from something you wrote that you really liked your style on it, that's the kind of stuff where we'll train the model for you essentially. And then you can now add knowledge. We have this feature called Knowledge Library inside the platform too, where you can like essentially just stack all of your best content, all of your best podcast episodes, and use that as sources of knowledge for all future content you create. So these models will get better and better over time. They'll have more source data from humans to learn from. But at the end of the day, there's just no way that AI is going to write a thing exactly the same way that you will. And so that's where my recommendation is, whenever you create AI first content, if it's going from a YouTube video to a blog post generator like what you guys use a lot, or writing an article from scratch using AI to do a first draft or outlining it, whatever you do, your process looks like, it's really important to take that editing pass you were talking about. Make sure that names are spelled right. AI will spell Ryan Robinson wrong sometimes. And I'm shocked by it, but you know what? This is AI. This is the infancy of these tools. And so it's really important to fact check, make sure names are spelled correctly, be wary of any statistics. It's not necessarily going to be wrong, but definitely double check them because you can't be sure. And then finally, just make sure that you're spending real time on the introduction, the conclusion, weaving in your own voice, your own story, that tone stuff. Like these features, these kinds of features in RightBlogger and similar tools will get it pretty close to right, but it's never going to be perfect. I think you talked about spending maybe 7 minutes or so on going from a video to a blog post. That's impressive. My perfectionist nature requires me to like really dig in there, and I end up spending probably close to more like half an hour from most of my video to blog post stuff, but sky's the limit. And these tools are here to help you do more content faster and repurpose it quicker.
And what drew you into this industry to begin with? What was it about this space that you and your business partner said, and look, we get your emails, you guys are super responsive, you have just, I can speak from firsthand experience here. You guys are amazing at what you do. You roll out new features quickly, you take advice, you fix bugs like within minutes, literally, of me emailing, you'll fix a bug. You will look at a file that isn't working. Like you guys are very, from a service perspective, I can definitely from firsthand experience put you up on a pedestal and say that I've never had this level of service from a SaaS platform provider before, and never that level of interactivity by the founders before. So kudos to you. But that indicates to me that you are deeply passionate about what you're doing. You actually care about what you're doing. You care about the people using your technology because you know that it's an essential part of the production process in many cases. Like you've been slotted into the workflow chain of a lot of these creators. And so therefore, timing for a lot of these episodes and articles, etc., is of the essence. And if you can't get the content out, the audience can be disappointed, especially if they're expecting it at a certain time on a certain day. So it feels like you take your role as an essential tool in the content creator's toolbox. You take that really seriously. But what drew you guys into this in the first place? What made you say to yourself, look, there's lots of AI tools out there, awesome, but they don't do this exact thing in the way that we think it should be done. So we need to create something to fill a gap in the market. Were you scratching an itch for yourself, and that's where it started? Or did you have a friend that came to you and said, we'd love technology to do this? What was the genesis of RightBlogger in the first place?
Wow. First of all, thank you for the kind words. You're really gassing me up here. I'm going to throw most of the credit to my partner, Andy, who is the one who's going to reply and fix that bug for you in 3 minutes flat. Like that's not a promise, but it is a thing he does often somehow. He's remarkable. Andy is like this top 0.1% developer that I've just known. Like he's been friends with me for 12, 13 years now. And really, I feel like we started this to scratch our own itch. So I've been a creator, a blogger for 12 years now myself. And so I've built my audience, 500,000 monthly readers on my blog, around teaching, marketing, writing, blogging, how to create content online. That's something that I've just long been hired by like Fortune 500 brands and top startups in the Bay Area to help them build out and scale their acquisition from content. So this is literally my world. And when I first got started, I remember what it felt like to have not $1,000 in my bank account and be trying to make it as a blogger, as a creator, start my own business as a freelancer, a consultant. And even back then, I looked at tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush, and the price tags are so high. That's just so high. And I made it work back then by splitting subscriptions with friends, pulling together 5, 6 people to share this $100 a month tool set. And make no mistake, these tools are great. They're helpful, but they're so fucking expensive that it really rules a lot of people out from having access to this stuff. And AI was this big turning point of making these things more accessible and easier to build. So we had like in the back of our minds, always, Andy and I were like, one day we got to do a tool business and make something that's like budget friendly, accessible to people like us, because most creators I know, like spending $100-something a month on these kinds of tools is something you got to really think about, budget for, plan for. And so we always had this in the back of our minds. And then when OpenAI kind of surprised the world with ChatGPT and then their API right after that, we had that aha moment of, ooh, what can we do with this? And so on my blog, we started building a bunch of free tools, headline generators, article writers, meta title creators, things like that. And so my blog is where I get a ton of readers every month. We started just introducing the free tools to everyone on there, and pretty much immediately people started emailing and thanking us. And we were like, oh my God, this is pretty awesome. So RightBlogger was born pretty shortly after that as, okay, we can probably build this out as an actual real thing instead of just having these kind of supported free tools on my blog. And RightBlogger was this place where we could actually bring everything together, make it fully functional, have all this stuff that we're talking about, content dashboard too, where everything is saved in your account. And we have teams coming soon so that you'll be able to bring your assistant in or your partner in, collaborate on the same content together, have shared libraries. So really the vision here was like, can we build the tools we wished we would have had when we started as creators and keep them affordable forever? And so it really just is Andy and I behind the scenes, making everything, doing all the marketing, answering all the customer service stuff, like prioritizing features, fixing bugs. It really is us two. And our vision is to stay us two, to not sell to Ahrefs or SEMrush or something one day and see the product just rolled into an expensive thing. We really want to stay indie and be like with the people that we ourselves are. I think it's easy for the big tool companies that make tens of millions of dollars a year to really lose the connection to the individual person who's spending time creating content. So we do take that seriously.
To your point, between Descript, Opus Clip, and RightBlogger, between those three, I have 98% of my content creation, post-production, and Riverside, although I'll move over to Squadcast shortly because, of course, now it's been acquired by Descript. So get Squadcast for free if you're a subscriber of Descript. So we're seeing some consolidation in the tool space. But between those 3-4 pieces of software, largely driven by AI technology, the reality is a one-man band content creator like me, I record my own content, I post-produce my content, I distribute my own content, I have my own workflow for doing all of that myself, and I can put out 3 full-length podcast episodes per week with that tool set, and all for less than, let's call it less than $500 or so a year, all up for all those tools, all those AI tools. That is a very accessible suite of tools for the solo content creator who is trying to create content at scale. This would have, even 5 years ago, this would have been very difficult to do at scale without some of this tooling. I would have needed a professional podcast producer. I would have needed a distribution team. I would have needed people to respond to questions and all that sort of stuff. I would have needed people to do my posts on social for me. The reality is I would have needed a small team behind me even 5 years ago to do all the things that I do pretty seamlessly in under 2 hours total of full-length episode production, including the 1 hour of actually recording the episodes. So for post-production and distribution, that has only really been made possible through the power of AI within the last, say, call it 5 years.
Yeah. And here's what I love most about AI. Previously, in order to be successful with content, even if that was just to fuel some other business you have, you would have needed to become an expert at content production and promotion. That is no small feat right there. And AI now allows people who are just experts in whatever their domain is to more quickly, seamlessly, as you said, spend 2 hours on creating a piece of content like this. And you don't have to be the expert at video editing, writing tweets, like doing clip outs for Instagram. You don't have to be the pro at that. There are now tools that will help do those things for you so that you can actually just be the expert at your thing and hit record, show up, create, talk about it in the ways that only you as a human can. And then you have AI to help with all these things downstream. That's what I like most.
Hey team, I have a big favor to ask you. Please pause this episode and send the link of this episode to someone you know that you think would enjoy this content. Really appreciate you spreading the word. This is how we grow. We're not a Joe Rogan. We don't have big, massive advertising budgets, but we absolutely want to grow. We want to get the learnings from all of these episodes out to as wide of an audience as possible, and we need your help to do it. Thank you, and now back to your listening. And what are your thoughts on live events? Because a lot of people have thought and said to me, look, I think live events, especially during COVID, where everything seemed to move online, it moved to webinars, it moved to virtual conferences, etc. I had a lot of people say to me, the era of the live conference or the live event or the live speaking engagement, the summit, the roundtable, whatever, the era of that is dead. People don't want to get on a plane. They don't want to fly halfway around the world. They don't want to turn up. They don't want to have to do all this preparation. They want to be able to just jump online. They want to be able to have these conversations at scale, virtually. People want to be able to pop in and pop out at will. And look, there is some credence to some of those things. However, I was always of the opinion that live events in the world of AI were actually going to become more important. They were going to become more of an opportunity to stand out. They were going to become more of an opportunity to connect on a human level. And at least for me, conferences are 100% back. Like I was just in Chicago, a B2B online Chicago, massive event, super successful, had a great time. Not so much because of the content that I could hear from the stage that I couldn't hear anywhere else. No, most of the time, that same content I could hear on and watch on YouTube or whatever it might be. But the human connection is still the human connection, and we still can't replicate that. We can't still recreate that sense of palpable energy, physical energy, that electromechanical energy that human beings give off. We can't recreate that through a screen just yet. And so for me, and also when people attend a physical event, they know that's not AI. They're looking up at the stage, they're seeing you talk, they're absorbing the information, they're asking Q&A from the crowd. They know this is 100% definitely not a piece of AI created content, a virtual avatar of Jason creating this content. This is Jason in the flesh. And for people, I had people come up to me afterwards. Hey, look, I've been following you for years online. I've been listening to your podcast for years online, but it was so cool to see you in person. It was so cool to be able to ask you questions in real time from the audience and engage with you and sit around a round table and speak to you face to face. That was so cool. So I may have found out about you through your digital content, but I really wanted to meet you in person and actually have a conversation with you face to face. So I feel like those in-person pieces of content, and that, sure, those oftentimes will get recorded and then those will be uploaded to digital channels and YouTube and sliced and diced. But the actual physical being there, piece of engaging with another human being, I don't see that going away anytime soon. What do you think?
Oh, dude, it's completely priceless. I will maybe eat these words one day, but I do not think that you can replicate that in any meaningful sense. Like that for me is also priceless. Like I love meeting readers, people who consume my content. It is awesome. I had last summer, I wasn't even at an event. I was just having dinner in Barcelona by myself. And someone who was sitting at the table next to me asked, "Are you Ryan Robinson?" And we had the best conversation for an hour over dinner. And these are the kinds of things that just add such a qualitative piece to your life, both as the creator and as someone who is coming to meet a creator. That is like completely irreplaceable in my opinion. And even still coming off of COVID, like COVID was what, 4 years ago or so now, like I'm still seeing pent up demand for people who want to do more events, want to be in spaces with each other. Like I go to dinner party things all the time now, and much more like hosted events, smaller stuff usually than conferences and whatnot. But I think there's a fantastic use case to be made too for people who are thinking about wanting to organize their own micro conference. If you have the kind of business that you have a high enough ticket product, I don't think this works necessarily for a product that's $30 a month. But if you have a consulting service that you offer that's somewhat decently priced, maybe in the 5-figure range at least or something like that, there's a really good use case to be made for doing micro conferences and inviting other influencers in your space to come speak, bringing customers, asking customers if they know people who might want to attend a conference like this and learn from these experts. I think that's a really compelling pitch these days, and I think it'll continue to become more and more appealing to more people who want that real life connection.
Yeah, no question about it. At least for me, that in-person thing is just, you can't, digital can't touch it yet. And so I'm really stoked to be able to be back in person again. It's super exciting. I love it. I love meeting people and making new connections, making new relationships. And then what I find is that oftentimes I can then take those new relationships online and I can say, look, I'd love to get you on my podcast. We've met now in person. I'd love to get you on my podcast to talk about these topics in greater detail because we formed a personal connection that leads naturally into a further online deep dive discussion. So I love, and it works both ways, right? When I go to these conferences, oftentimes I'm meeting people for the very first time in person that I've already had on my podcast. And so it's cool. Now I get to actually meet these people in person. So I think it flows seamlessly both directions. And I'm really excited about that. It seems to me that the future of commerce really, it's inextricably linked with content. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this in relation to content everywhere and commerce everywhere. We're now entering into a space where, especially via AI, we're going to get two different types of commerce, I think, starting to happen. We're going to get we're going to get automatic commerce. We're going to get what I coined in 2017. I coined a term called stealth commerce, which is commerce is going to be, there's going to be transactions that happen in our life that we don't recognize as a transaction. We're going to have our car that's going to automatically, at the time that it needs a oil change, we're eventually going to get to a point where we're going to nominate our friendly neighborhood auto part supplier. It's gonna automatically order directly with their computer system. It's gonna automatically order the oil of our choice. It's gonna automatically order the oil filter, the air filter, etc. It's gonna automatically have it shipped to our mechanic of choice, and then eventually our car is gonna drive itself there. It's gonna have the service done at the mechanic of our choice, and it's gonna put it in our calendar. It's gonna book it in our Google Calendar, and then it's gonna drive there, and then it's gonna bring itself back home again, or at least it's gonna be in our calendar. We're gonna drive it to the mechanic. The parts and everything are already gonna be there. We're already gonna be booked in with the mechanic, and those transactions, we're not going to have to manually intervene to make those transactions happen. A lot of those transactions will happen automatically, and our favorite suppliers will just be a supplier. We're going to have smart clothes, and after 50 washes, it's going to be threadbare, and we're going to know, okay, this pair of jeans is worn out. Automatically, a new pair of jeans is going to turn up at our doorstep, right? We're going to have smart fridges, smart pantries that keep an eye on. We're going to set min maxes for how much cheese we want in there, how much butter, how much bread. We're going to have expiry dates all tracked automatically through RFID. There's going to be so much stuff that's going to be automated in terms of the transactional layer. But then outside of the automated transactional layer, we're going to have more considered purchases. We're going to have the more discretionary purchases. We're going to have the purchases like I've been making from Mexico, where I needed to do research. For example, we live in Puebla, and there's an active volcano there. And so there's oftentimes a lot of smoke and particulate in the air. So I wanted to buy a whole home air purifier, right? Now, I went to Amazon because Amazon is trusted. It delivers everywhere in Mexico. It delivers very cheaply, or with Prime, it's usually free. And so I've spent several $1,000s kitting out our new place in Puebla over the last couple of months on Amazon. But 9 times out of 10, I've actually had to leave Amazon to go to product review websites or go to YouTube to watch product review videos before I make my buying decision, and then go back to Amazon, look for that product, hopefully find the product, hopefully find it at a good price, hopefully find it available to me in Mexico, and then choose to complete the purchase. And it still seems like there's a tremendous amount of friction transitioning from the buying experience to the research experience through content. And I feel like that is got to and will get better over the next few years. And I think that's got to happen. The big boys and girls in the world, they have to play nice together, and they don't currently. Why does YouTube not have a partnership deal with Amazon? Why does not Amazon automatically pull in product reviews from YouTube, matching product reviews for those products into the PDP of those products? For example, this could easily be done with AI today, and it's just because they want to have their own kingdoms, and they want to have their own walled gardens, and they don't want anybody inside their walled gardens. But to my way of thinking, collaboration wins over competition every single time, especially when it comes to content. What is your thoughts?
Yeah, specifically even with Amazon, I have started to see some more of the influencer style reviews, not overly produced, but clearly some sort of compensator review, or maybe it's an affiliate scheme or something where they're incentivizing people who are creators, or maybe people who have stores on Amazon, to actually create a decently produced review, right? More than just you're snapping an iPhone photo of a review and writing a sentence. So I think we will see platforms like Amazon eventually get to a place where they do incentivize this, and it does actually happen. But yeah, from my perspective, content is the way to educate about what your product is. And whether you're doing affiliate marketing and you're teaching about products that you care about, or you make your own products and services and you're trying to educate people, my philosophy has always been teach 99% of how to do something for free to the world, make it great, do it well, the way that you would want to learn. And the vast majority of people are going to come to that content and they're going to be like, oh, this is great. And then they get 5 minutes into your video, they get halfway through your blog post, whatever it is that you're teaching this process. And then the light bulb goes off. Oh shit, this is a whole thing. I got to really learn about this in order to pick up the skills that this other person already has in order to execute at where I know I want to be if I'm going to do this well. And so that's where you, as the creator of educational resources, have this opportunity to be the first person that's top of mind for someone who wants to hire someone to do that thing or buy the product that'll just do that for you. So I think content is completely irreplaceable. You cannot untangle that from commerce. Not a chance. It's just gonna become more important.
Yeah, and I think that when I think through all the buying experiences that because I'm a little bit odd in the sense that I prefer to do most of my shopping online. The world isn't quite there yet. I like to do, if I could do 100% of my shopping online, I would. There are certain things that you just can't do easily online yet, or there's no supplier selling it in your area online or whatever it might be. So we're not to a place, I don't, even for somebody like me, where I can spend 100% of my retail purchasing power online, but we're getting there. But when I think through all of the things that I do buy online, definitely the websites in particular, and the marketplaces for that matter, that centralize all of the related content in one place, or at least they're the hub of it, even if it's an embedded YouTube video or whatever it might be. So maybe it's another platform that actually hosts the content, but becoming the nexus and the hub for all of that educational and entertainment information, whether it's embedding a TikTok video or whatever it might be. The reality is, yes, we have many different channels where content is the primary purpose of the platform. But I think if the brands, and maybe they're just a retail aggregator, maybe they're not even a manufacturing brand, maybe they're just a retail aggregator, a reseller, if they can become the hub of solutions as opposed to products. And so what I mean by that is not just a solution in terms of product bundling and packaging, which I think is severely overlooked by a lot of retailers to begin with. They're selling individual products as opposed to holistic solutions. And I think they can separate themselves out from the market by creating holistic solutions and bundles and kits and packages that all of a sudden solve an entire problem as opposed to one tiny sliver of a problem. I think that's massively overlooked by the market. But then secondarily, being the hub of content, entertainment, and information about those products and services and solutions. If you're the go-to, if you're known as the go-to for that, then you are not going to be just the go-to for the content. You're going to be go-to for the solution as well. And this is the thing that I think a lot of brands overlook.
And you also miss a huge opportunity too. If you're not solution oriented in how your business is, you'll miss new product and service like opportunities because you'll be thinking about yourself as, oh, I make podcast microphones instead of I provide all the tools podcasters need in order to produce a great show. Think about the different ways that you would approach that business if that was your business. And so I think that's low key a huge differentiating factor. If you really view your job as your business owner as like just providing the best solutions you can to the people in your target market, oh man, you open up a lot of horizons for places that you can't even predict you'll go, but that you will deepen relationships and probably find your way into massive new businesses that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, and this goes back to that collaboration over competition thing. I think even if you're a manufacturing brand and you operate in a specific vertical, at least when you start out, it's very rare that you can manufacture every single component or item required for that solution, right? So let's say, I don't know, let's say your Rode microphones, for example, right? And so they might have they've got the Rodecaster kit, they've got the wireless one, then they've got the wired one where they got the arm mount for the desk, and then they got the microphone there, and that's great. But as far as I know, as far as I'm aware, they don't create podcast mixing decks. They don't create all these other components around producing a podcast. They don't create podcasting software. They don't do all these things. And I think when you go to the Rode website or you go to websites that sell Rode products, the reality is that Rode could actually be the font of all knowledge around this, and they could have fully packaged solutions, even of products that they don't manufacture, but they can clip the ticket on selling that as a bundle or as a kit or as a total solution. And so I just don't see a lot of manufacturers thinking about being a full solution provider. If they can't provide the end-to-end solution, they're like, well, we're not going to list somebody else's product on our branded website.
Right.
Well, why not? Because
What
they're
a
not
miss.
competing with you because you don't manufacture those things. So they're not a competitor to yours. You can collaborate with them, right? And why wouldn't you want to cross-pollinate? Why wouldn't you want to be the supplier of, in Rode's case, the microphones to the mixing deck manufacturers, You sell your products on their website as a package. You sell their products on your website as a package. Why wouldn't you collaborate to create and bring total solutions to the market around your vertical? And this is where I think the retail aggregators, that's why they still have a business, because they'll take products from 50 different manufacturers and suppliers. They'll put that together and they'll sell that as a total solution in their vertical. And so I just feel that this combination of content, commerce, and collaborating across not just content, but on solutions, total solutions, this feels like the way forward, because customers don't want to buy individual products. They want to buy solutions to their problems.
Yeah. And they want to buy solutions that play nicely with everything else in their kind of solution stack. I find that Blogger is content creation tools, primarily AI stuff, but we have some things that aren't AI too. Now, we collaborate. Some of our best collaborations are with companies like ConvertKit, email marketing platform, or something like ClearScope, which is super hardcore SEO tooling, because we don't want to go as deep into that as they are. But there's seriously strong overlap of marketers, creators in all these different spaces. And so you could choose to view them as competitors and never even reach out. Whereas in reality, there is so much crossover opportunity. And we refer them customers too by hosting like joint workshops or having deals we offer each other on the back end. So really the possibilities are limitless if you don't act from a place of scarcity around being in your industry, and rather seek to connect people and make those referrals proactively. If you know someone who offers a service and a person who needs that service, make that connection happen and figure out ways to eventually do that in a more scalable process, like you said. But being solution oriented, the sky's the limit, essentially, if you're motivated to solve the problems that your people have. And your ears will be open to it too.
I think you guys are a prime example of that, because at the end of the day, you could see ChatGPT as a potential competitor for you, because they could maybe come out with a solution similar to yours directly themselves via their app store, whatever, or via their Plus model. You could develop based on an open source LLM. You could develop that in-house. You could host the LLM yourself in-house. You could build that your own proprietary stack. But you're saying, actually, we don't want to be LLM developers. We don't want that is not our core competency. Our core competency is aggregating tools together in one place that provide as much of an end-to-end content creation and management solution under one roof. That's our superpower. Isn't the latest LLM, right? And so why wouldn't we collaborate with ChatGPT, consume their LLM via API, and integrate that into our tool set with a really amazing UI over the top of it? That's your superpower, is creating a really friendly, easy to use UI over the top of that for creators that sometimes are not very technical. You want to be accessible to everyone. So in that sense, you're also being an example of collaboration over competition, right?
And on top of just that collaboration layer too, something with RightBlogger that I think a lot of people underestimate is that we have spent, let me tell you, probably hundreds of hours learning how to become experts at prompting. And that there is such an art and science to that most people do not want to go down the rabbit hole of hundreds of hours of learning. And so that's another thing where learning how to best interact with AI in order to get what you actually want out of it is such a useful thing in tools like RightBlogger. And there's other AI tools out there that do similar stuff, but we are creators first. Like, we are creators writing and editing the prompts and how we deliver these outputs. And that, I would say, is pretty damn unique in this space. You look at something like a Jasper, Copy AI, like these bigger ones, right, Sonic, that have like venture-backed funding and raised $50 million, whatever. I would bet money that it is not actual content creators with decades of experience who are curating the prompts and deciding how tools should function. And so there's a major sort of leg up that I'd say we have over those companies when it just comes to what seems like a simple user experience, but actually at the end of the day, the outputs you get from these tools determine if it's actually going to work for you in your process or not.
Totally agree. Yeah, and now look, Ryan, this has been a fantastic conversation. As we come down to the end of our time together, there's a few, couple last questions I'd love to get your thoughts on. As we look forward into the future of AI and translation in particular, we look at platforms like HeyGen, which are doing an amazing job of doing not only face matching, but translation by speaker. I want to eventually, my goal is to release my podcast in Spanish at a bare minimum and actually have a separate channel for my podcast in Spanish and have every single full length episode fully translated into Spanish using my voice and my guest's voice, but in Spanish. And obviously with Face Match, with platforms like HeyGen, that's amazing and the output is amazing, but the cost is so high currently that if I wanted to, because I'm producing around 150 hours a year of podcast episodes, that when we start thinking about the scale of that, 50 weeks, 3 1-hour episodes a week, all converted, face matched and translated, that's still tens of thousands of dollars as of today. But I can't see, I see even that level of AI becoming commoditized eventually. And whether that's in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, I don't know the exact timeline of that. But I see eventually something like HeyGen coming down from thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars a year for a large scale creator like myself. I see that coming down to hundreds of dollars a year. Descript has so much technology wrapped up into a platform that I spend, I think, I don't know, it's $300 a year or whatever it is. It's so cheap that it's basically practically free for what it does for me, that I almost think of it as, I don't even think of the expense because it is that cheap. Do you see translation in particular? I see that as the next frontier of AI because there are so many English only content creators. And so they are not able to tap into the zeitgeist of the DACH market, for example, in German. They're not able to tap into the Latin American market in Spanish. They're not able to tap into the Portuguese market, which is a massive market between Brazil and Portugal. They're not able to tap into these very large, very hungry markets because they can't do the translation at scale that comes across as that it was naturally spoken in that language. I feel like that's the next frontier of content. What is your take?
I think we're talking more like scale of years for that to happen, because here's where the nuance really matters of this to me. Whenever I watch content, video especially, content that has AI involved in it, whether it's noticing that the mouth moves just a little funny or the picture, someone's facial expression doesn't quite look 100% right, there's something so deeply ingrained in us as humans through our evolutionary process that little flares, little signal flares will go off. And you may not even necessarily be super consciously aware of it, but you'll process it as something is off about this. And so when you look at a lot of the content today that's created this way, even the super expensive stuff, it still will have a touch of that. And I think it's a no-brainer that we eventually get there, that this stuff is perfect and is commoditized, it's cheap from a creator standpoint. It's a no-brainer. But I do think it's probably years for that kind of computing processing speed to actually catch up with it and bring the cost down. So what we see today is the cost for the text generative AI stuff like ChatGPT and OpenAI and Claude and all these different Anthropic models. That's the kind of stuff we see prices are crashing already. These companies will be competing on price essentially at some point in the very near future. But the people who are going to do the next frontier, that's video. And I just think that's such a more complex beast with the amount that really goes into it beyond just file sizes and computing speed processing that's needed for it. The level of discernment that we as humans have when watching video is so high. I don't know about you, Jason, but I'll watch YouTube videos that are 100% human created. And if there's something that's lacking about the production quality of it, I will often bounce. I will go find someone who's talking about the same subject matter, and it just looks and sounds better from a quality perspective. So I think that human level of discernment and the bar will keep rising at the same time as we do more of this generative AI video stuff. And so I don't know when that tipping point is going to be, but I'm excited to see it. because yeah, it does unlock some really cool doors.
The uncanny valley, very hard to bridge across the full spectrum of the uncanny valley. How do you guys make your money over at RightBlogger? You're a SaaS platform. I know because I pay for a subscription. I know how you guys work, but for the benefit of the audience that don't know, how do you guys make your money over at RightBlogger?
Yeah. So we have 12, 13,000 free users of RightBlogger. So we wanted to, again, sticking with our ethos of good tools for people who can't afford it really. We wanted to make our tools free to try so you can use just about every tool somewhere between 2 and 3 times a month, I think. And then when you when you get value out of it, that's when you join the paid plan. We have only one subscription level right now. We wanted to just start super simple. And we've decided to keep it really simple because complex pricing, usage-based pricing, which you'll see in a lot of these AI tools that want to charge you based on how many articles you create, how many words you generate. I personally think that's total shit. And we just wanted to make totally simple plans. So just $29.99 a month is unlimited usage of all the tools. I think we have 75 tools right now in our platform, or we will tonight when Andy pushes another release. But yeah, that's really it. It's straightforward. And we're working on some new stuff too. That's going to be really fun. We're going to have a studio plan, we're calling it, that Jason, you might actually be interested in, where you'll be able to essentially white label any tool inside RightBlogger and say, ooh, the Excel formula generator or the article writer. I'd love to have a version of that branded as me on my blog, on my website. So this kind of comes full circle. Here we are talking about like solutions, offering your audience solutions. That's what we want to help people do.
Love it. You've achieved your goal, in my opinion, of democratizing this technology and making it accessible to everyone. I'm a user. I'm a fan. You guys have done a great job. Can't fault your service. Got no complaints. I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with next as part of the next evolution of RightBlogger. And I trust you guys to stay at the forefront of this AI thing so that I don't have to. So I really appreciate that. As a busy creator trying to do big things in the world, I really appreciate what you guys have done. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, this is where I like to flip the script. I like to turn the microphone over to my guest. I love to let them ask me one question, any question they like. So Ryan Robinson from RightBlogger, what is your question for me today?
We have grown significantly from my audience and very organic pickup at RightBlogger. So we've never paid to acquire any of our customers. Our affiliate program drives a lot of customers too. What is like the next channel that you would recommend us exploring and bolting on to keep our growth going?
Such a great question. Look, I don't think I'm necessarily the expert in this. I think in many respects, you're already doing a creator-led growth model, obviously with your blog, and that led into you guys having your own RightBlogger blog. And I think obviously partnerships with creators, it is a creator economy, right? And so whether you partner with content creators who are also influencers, because I suspect that if you look across your entire laundry list of customers, there may be 1%, 2%, 3% that are fairly significant creators in their own right, fairly significant influencers in their own right. So working with influencers that are already fans and already users of your technology feels like an absolute no-brainer. Feels like, man, these kind of partnerships feel like a no-brainer. Getting them in, yes, you've already got your affiliate program, but maybe making a more formal ambassador program with creators, that feels like an absolute natural fit, whether it be sponsoring them, sponsoring their content, working with them in some form of formal fashion where they endorse your platform. This feels like a natural stepping stone for you guys because I suspect you've already got super fans that are already paying for the product or super fans that are using the free version of the product that already have an audience. Definitely there'll be micro influencers amongst your audience that already have a pretty big audience of their own. I think also working with, it sounds like your team's product or whatever it is you're working on might be better for agencies because I feel like that's another pathway into getting into bigger contracts. Maybe instead of just having the one tier, maybe now you've got like an agency tier where now you're helping agencies to create content at scale for their customers. So instead of winning one customer at a time, you now are winning 50 customers through one agency client. So this, instead of having to go and acquire customers literally one at a time, acquiring them in bulk, this feels also a pathway to hyper growth that also taps you into the more enterprise end of the market, where money, $29 a month for them is nothing, but also $199 a month for them, if they've got 50 clients, is also nothing. And so it feels like being able to move up that enterprise stack and becoming more of the enterprise supplier of content tools at scale. That feels, I know you've already got APIs and various other things, but making it more workflow friendly as part of agency workflows, I think that's going to be mission critical for you guys as well. That's my sense. Again, I'm not an expert on this, but it feels like these are two massive pathways for you guys.
I dig it. These are the two that have been like staring us in the face lately.
Awesome. I'm glad that you're already thinking about it. This has been amazing. Ryan, I have seriously enjoyed our conversation. You and Andy are the experts in this space. You've contributed massively to the conversation. I love what you guys are doing, and I can't wait to see what you guys do with RightBlogger over the next 12, 18 months. So look forward to having you get on the podcast at some point within that time frame to see where you've gone.
Thank you again for having me. And for anyone who does want to reach out, I'm the most accessible guy ever. You can just find me anywhere on the internet, but I'm just Ryan at rightblogger.com too.
Fantastic. I'll be putting a link to your LinkedIn. I'll be putting a link to RightBlogger into the show notes. And obviously they can reach out to you by email. And as someone who has reached out to you via email and gotten a response, I can honestly say Ryan will respond to you if you send him an email. So send an email his way. Check out RightBlogger, and amazing tool, amazing platform for creators. Ryan, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. If you'd like to get mentored by Jason for free, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason.